Wine, which is made from grapes, is either red or yellow. And what else do you need to know?
Well, there's history and geography, chemistry.
We're in California, and I'm on a mission to find the affordable American wine.
Yes, and I see it more as a voyage of discovery, and I'm keen to show James there is a real history here. So, we'll visit the oldest vines,
That is the biggest bunch of grapes I've ever seen.
drink the wines they produce,
It's a taste of the still fairly Wild West.
and meet the heroes who saved them from beverage oblivion.
Along the way, we'll cover all the bases: wine, women, and song.
Come on, baby, let the good times roll. Our next destination is well known for I Left My Heart.
Oh, give it up, man. And the policing efforts of Carl Malden and Michael Douglas. We are, of course, heading to the streets of San Francisco. This week's episode, Zinfandel.
On this leg of our journey, my goal is to seduce James away from the high-volume, mass-produced wines he fell for at our last stop.
3 million bottles a day, that's winemaking.
And I think Zinfandel is just the thing to do it, as it's both excellent and affordable.
I've never heard of it.
Well, just listen then, and you might learn something. Zinfandel.
Sounds like something you take for diarrhea.
Stop it, James. Zinfandel is an American classic, and with its intense fruitiness, its luscious texture, its hot spices, and its high alcohol content, Zinfandel is just right for the American palate. What is the American way? Bigger is better.
Extra
Louder
cheese.
is better. Brighter is better. Stronger is better. Extra cheese is better. Supersize me is better.
Something tells me this is going to be a long day.
Big and bouncy Zinfandel was one of the many grape varieties brought over by immigrants from Europe who wanted to retain a flavour of their homeland. But when alcohol was outlawed during Prohibition, wine and winemakers went into crisis.
As this home movie, shot by Oz in the 1920s, shows, American officials were worried about the effect alcohol was having on the people. There were far too many high-speed dancing and cocktail-shaking accidents. Gangsters stepped in and began bootlegging, running speakeasies and generally shooting up the joint. This was just for parking in somebody else's space. While in response, the FBI ensured that the streets ran with confiscated booze.
But there was one glorious legal loophole in this ban on booze. Making wine for use at home and in religious ceremonies, God bless those Catholics, was allowed. Vineyards actually increased during Prohibition, and so did the demand for wine. What happened in Prohibition was that people got into the idea of being home winemakers. So everybody got these big, thick, rock-solid kind of grapes without any subtlety to them, but with lots of colour and normally quite a lot of ability to make alcoholic strength. They fermented them into pretty rough and ready stuff. They often made it quite sweet as well. And so the wine drinkers, frankly, got used to these big, burly, powerful flavours. Thankfully, that Prohibition fondness for heavy, sweet wine has gone, although light, sugary wines are still far too common. But dry wines are back in fashion, and the great Prohibition survivor, Zinfandel, is on a roll, with many Californian winemakers billing themselves as Mr. Zin, or the King of Zin, or the Zin Man. Now, to introduce you to America's favourite grape, we're going to meet someone who still works with those vineyards that survived Prohibition. Kent Rosenblum is a former vet who got sick of putting dogs down by day and making wine in his basement by night, and he turned pro, concentrating on Zinfandel. A lot of you guys call you the King of Zin, but I call you the Saviour of Zin. Why did you suddenly start thinking that you could save it?
We were a little bit forced into it. If we wanted to make wine, we could get these old grapes at $400 a ton, and Cabernet was $1,000, and we found we liked it better than Cabernet after doing it for a while, and realized there's a real gem out here.
Kent and his friends got going in the 1970s when Cabernet and Chardonnay were all the rage, and unfashionable Zin was threatened with extinction. But he doesn't grow grapes. Kent finds old, forgotten vineyards and guarantees the farmer he'll buy their harvest, saving these elderly vineyards from oblivion and providing him and his pals with Zin grapes from vines that go back to the 1890s.
These old vineyards had a really just the flavors and the character and the wonderful nuances all their own. And lo and behold, they sold faster than anything else we made. They sold faster in Cabernet, they sold faster than white. So what do? We made some more.
Kent has a deal with a superb old vineyard in Sonoma County that was owned by the St. Peter's Community Church. So he's going to treat us to a taste of church wine from 120-year-old vines, by far the oldest vines we've come across on our trip so far.
A bell sounds for the end of Double History, and it's time for a drink.
That doesn't look like a typical wine.
This actually goes back to my days of the veterinary practice.
So before this, it went up a horse's bottom then.
You started as a home winemaker.
Right.
So just like the Prohibition guys would have been home winemakers. So another thread going back into Prohibition.
Was anybody ever gunned down out of the rear window of a Duesenberg over this?
You know, we'd have to research that one.
But it's possible.
Yes.
There could have been a bit of Tommy gun action.
The complexities of this wine will definitely put James's tasting skills to the test.
It tastes, I don't know if this is just because you've been telling stories, but it tastes old-fashioned. This is essentially a religious wine. It's a sacramental wine at heart, produced like this during Prohibition and drunk for non-ecclesiastical reasons by people who wanted to drink when they weren't allowed to. So, forbidden fruit?
Forbidden fruit?
Zinfandel.
Sin of Zin.
That's it.
Zinfandel. Why do we call it Zinfandel?
I rather like James's assessment of the old vine Zin, and he seems to have forgotten the mass market plonk we found in the last episode. I've got him on the hook now. I just need to reel him in. Equally keen to secure another convert, Kent provides me with some more excellent Zin for what you might call homework.
And while Oz pops a couple of corks, I break out the wine can. Okay, this is a view of the chap's motorhome from the art table through the easy chair where Oz Clarke discusses his overdraft, the suitcases, Oz's handbag.
There's a massive, massive fact about Zinfandel that you haven't actually yet approached.
What?
Zinfandel is a red wine.
Is that your wine fact? If you hold it and just film me drinking Zinfandel, I need to be. They expect me to be holding the cap. You don't need to get that close, surely.
I have to say to you, James, I think Zinfandel is the heart, the core, red Zinfandel of California wine.
I think we've established that we like Zinfandel. We rise late the following morning, temporarily abandon our camper van at Kent's winery and head into the heart of the hustle and bustle. We have arrived in San Francisco, which is not a good place to drive a bus, so we're staying in a hotel, and in order to get around, I've managed to find a little corner of this magnificent American city that is forever England. In you get.
Thank you.
You can put some flowers in your hair. Oh no, you can't, can you?
My first ever car was a Mini, James.
Is it?
Yeah!
Fortunately, Oz hasn't realised that this is a left-hand drive Mini, so I'll drive, as usual.
We're heading for a spot where I can give James his next lesson, and this time it's geography. San Francisco is seen as the gateway to the great northern Californian vineyards, and the fact that any wine grapes can flourish in the hot, arid climate is down to a quirky weather phenomenon.
I suspect Oz is going out of his way to tell me something very simple, but I don't actually mind, because out here in the foothills beyond San Francisco, I can enjoy what is quite possibly the greatest car currently in America.
Now, this is really important for the geography of the whole of Northern California's fine wine industry. Inland, it would be too hot to make fine wine, except that this 2-mile gap here allows an enormous amount of ice-cold air to get dragged in from the Alaska Current, which is running just off the coast here. And as it gets further inland, the fog disappears, gradually becomes cool winds, then those become less cool winds, then light breezes, and eventually they just disappear altogether. The nearer you are to this great pile of fog and cold wind coming through this Golden Gate Bridge, the better the conditions you're going to have for what one might call delicate wines, what one might call, these awful wine words like elegant or perfumed or refined or blah, blah, blah.
Poncy.
Poncy, thank you very much. Poncy wines need cool conditions. Nicely put. After shivering in the fog for 20 minutes, I decided to continue classes somewhere more convivial, somewhere populated with the bright young things of today, quaffing everything from old-style Zinfandels to trendy Pinot Noirs. Oh, you're going to love this place, James. It's called Vino Venue. It's cool, it's modern, there are absolutely loads of really trendy wines to taste, and it's mechanical.
The mechanics take the form of automated dispensers that operate with a kind of wine credit card and in return dish out fruit-based drinks from around the world in very small doses.
Keen to keep James on track, I start him on the Zinfandels.
So I press that.
Yep.
Is that it?
I'll try then. Yes, they've swapped the centuries-old simplicity of generously tipping a bottle for 21st century penny pinching.
It's not much, is it, really?
It's not going to last long.
These dribbles are never going to satisfy our manly thirsts.
I thought if I kept my finger on longer, I might get more, but it's too intelligent. Oh, sorry, I accidentally pressed it twice.
Stop it! That's my card!
However, the exact measures do give me an idea.
You know what you could do with this machine? Admittedly, it's a bit of an expensive way of doing it, but you could make blends. Because you could put a squirt of that, a squirt of that, and a squirt of Zinfandel.
James wants a blending competition in which we each make a new wine and test it out on the San Francisco public. Well, I think it's a great idea, as not only do I get to teach him about the subtleties of blending, but surely I can win this one.
I mean, right, $2 for that squirt. Right, there you go. This is $5 a shot.
You sure you want to do it?
Yeah.
We had to find some way of entertaining ourselves because, of course, at these prices, there was absolutely no way we were going to get clattered.
Is it getting there?
Yeah.
Grenache is a wonderful blender. You need to add some sex to a wine, shove in some Grenache.
Excuse me, would you like to try my blend that I've made?
Sure, I would love to.
And tell me honestly what you think. Don't just be polite because I'm a foreigner.
So, what will these wine lovers make of James's blend?
Is it?
I like it, yeah. Tastes like hot honey. Kind of like honey past its prime. Melty and dirty.
Yeah, but I wanted it to
Melty
have a slightly...
and- James, this wine is now melty and dirty. Not exactly a great tasting note. My hirsute rival may have blundered around adding dribs and drabs of God knows what, but I know just what I'm after. A splash of Zin, a drop of Syrah, and controversially a soupçon of Sauvignon Blanc. So what will these San Francisco sirens make of this improvised nectar? What do you reckon?
You do
It
like
has a
it?
good finish.
You like that?
Which one do you prefer?
I think I liked this better.
One to me.
Yours is better right off the bat.
Purer,
Yes.
more classically balanced.
More flavor. I might have
And one to me.
With the score at 1-1, we needed a cider. Then I spot the spittoon.
Put that in and see if you can tell me all the different things that are in there and the nationalities of the people who spat in it.
Shall I?
Yeah. Go on. I'll do it if you don't. This is not faked for television. Well done. It's a mixture of Zinfandels, don't tell me.
It's port.
Is it?
And it's also, someone's actually stuck a cigarette out and it's disgusting. I know what it is, it's Watney's Party 7 mixed with cochineal. It's like port.
It's very dark. It's like a pub carpet, isn't it?
It's
That's
just
what
like a pub carpet. It's like old cigarette stubs on a Sunday morning when you wake up in the wrong place on the floor. It's disgusting, isn't it? It's filthy.
Drinking the spittoon was a big mistake, and we declare a draw before things get out of hand. The following morning, we rinse our mouths out with household bleach, check out of the hotel, pick up the camper van and hit the road, fully restocked courtesy of Oz's hotel room.
If the viewers could see your stash of purloined foodstuffs and toiletries from, let's be honest, all around the world over the last 20 or 30 years, they'd be absolutely staggered. You're a man of some means. You don't need to steal tea bags.
The silly thing is, at home,
You've got millions of them, you nutcase.
I like really good fresh tea.
Your tea bags are all 20 years old.
I know, I can't believe, because our next destination is home to something far older than my tea bag collection. Now he's tasted some old vine Zinfandel, I want James to see how ancient vines differ dramatically from the younger examples we've seen in our journey so far. So we're heading an hour inland to the very unfamous community of Oakley.
When you're in California, so much of it seems so new. So many of the vineyards seem to be so recently planted. So many of the stories that one has to tell here are from the 70s, from the 80s, from the 90s. And I think it's very important for me to show James that there was another world in Californian wine, and in tiny places there still is.
And this is one of them. Hidden on the wrong side of the tracks is 250 acres of American history owned by Fred Klein. He bought the place from a giant chemical company who until the 1980s was shipping these grapes in wooden boxes to the East Coast, just like in Prohibition. The encroaching city makes this land extremely valuable, but despite repeated offers, Fred says he'll never sell these 19th century vineyards. He's someone else determined to keep Zinfandel and the other old-timers on America's wine list.
These are some of the oldest ones we have, and these are approximately about 115 years now.
They've been here since Queen Victoria was doing her stuff on the British throne.
Compared with some of the quite posh vineyards we've been to, yours look quite, looks quite sort of rustic and unkempt.
We've been here barely a minute and James has already insulted our host. I think that's a record.
It's not meant to be an insult. They look quite wild.
Well, they are unkempt, but they're just so old that there's only so much you can do with them.
Realising my mistake, I decide to make up for it with some out-of-character, over-the-top enthusiasm for Fred's produce.
Wow, look at that. That is the biggest bunch of grapes I've ever seen on a vine. That's magnificent. What sort of grape is that?
We call it the Golden Chassel. It's also known as Palomino. It's grown extensively in Spain, and that's what they make sherry out of.
And that is a wine fact.
They're things of beauty, I think.
I think so. And feel it, James.
A cattle farmer also once made me feel the reassuring weight of a bull's testicles, and it sort of reminds me of that a bit as well.
Luckily,
So
I
I'll
haven't shared that experience.
Well, James is going to feel the weight of many a bunch, as his next wine challenge is to race Oscar, one of Fred's top pickers, because these Golden Chasselas are ready to harvest. They each have to strip a vine
Through that one.
and then dump the grapes in the tractor trailer.
Mexicans like Oscar provide the muscle in the wine industry, and it's clear he picks grapes for a living. I'm giving it my best shot, but I'm still picking like, ponce off the telly.
Look at that one. I've earned about 30 pence there.
That's true.
Oscar strips his vine in a mere 46 seconds, leaving James floundering in his wake.
I'm getting quicker already.
You are?
Now, Oscar, remember, was 46 seconds for a vine, twice the size of yours. You are now standing at 2
I'm not
minutes
very good at
55.
it.
All right, then.
All right, you guys want
2 minutes 60, that's it.
What's known as 3 minutes to everyone else on the planet. Grape pickers get $1 a box, and amazingly, a good one can earn $250 a day.
Oscar, cuando pescamos, ¿cuánto cada has hecho usted?
I'll translate. How much of a ponce is this English person, do you think, Oscar? He has the strength of a 5-year-old girl, he's saying.
I'm exhausted from my horny-handed toil in the fields. I need a drink.
Fred is known for crafting approachable but really interesting, affordable wines which should appeal to James.
This is priced around the $7, $8 price range a bottle. And
7 to 8, really? Mm-hmm. Is it for sale in England?
I think they have brought this into England.
And what are the grapes in here?
There's the Viognier, the Sauvignon, and there's the Chasselas we've been picking. So basically, this is an Oakley cuvee of the old white varieties.
This is £4.
It's also cold and wet, and as a fully fledged peasant, I'm grateful.
It's not one of those ethereal flavours at all. It's good, solid, blue collar, the railway runs through my vineyard kind of flavours.
It's quite a light drink, but it's very complicated, and the initial very slight sweetness and fruitiness resolves rather interestingly into quite an alcoholic fug in the back of your mouth, and a slight dryness. What is the alcohol content of this?
What would you guess it is?
14.
It's exactly 14.
It's because you practice so hard.
I'm wary of sounding like a wine ponce, but as refreshing as Fred's wine is, it does kind of taste like a £4 bottle.
It is rustic, to be honest. It's slightly, you could describe it as slightly rough around the edges. It's got a little bit of harshness in it and a little bit of an alcoholic kick, even though the alcohol content isn't very high. But it's sort of honest. It's maybe it's old-fashioned. Maybe it's a taste of the still fairly Wild West.
So, a £4 run-of-the-mill bottle isn't good enough for you nowadays, James. I think Ponstum could be beckoning. With that sprightly little number still tingling his taste buds, I'm moving on to the next stage of my plan to make James a Zinfandel zealot, using the internal combustion engine and the wines of another king of Zin, petrolhead and boss of the Ravenswood winery, Joel Peterson.
I thought Kent Rosenkrantz was the king of Zin. Do we
He's
have
the
two
saviour of
kings of
Zin.
Zin?
Yeah,
Oh, he's the saviour of Zin.
Oh,
You're
he's the
king of
saviour of Zin, the prince of Zin, the king of Zin.
He's a doctor of Zin, yeah. I'm the Zin guru, whatever, yeah.
I think basically these Zin guys have got a whole variety of titles.
With the idea of furthering James's wine education, I've asked Joel to arrange a demanding test, but I think the Zin guru might have underestimated my shaggy-haired prodigy.
I've got 4 glasses of wine in front of you. 3 of them are Zinfandel. 1 of them is something else.
Right.
I think you're up to it.
3 Zins and 1 Ringer.
Yeah. Zinger ringer. Just remember, when you're looking for the Zins, richness of texture, lovely attractiveness. The fact you don't actually have to have a PhD in wine appreciation to understand the Zin. It just hits your throat. You smile when it hits your throat. Spice, fruit, soft texture. That's what you're after.
I like that.
Well, the one thing about they all smell very different, don't they? Oh, of course, I'm smelling them. He's drinking them.
No one ever rang their mates up and said, do you want to go down the pub for a smell tonight, did they?
I'll be sort of surprised if James doesn't get this right. He's not the wine novice he once was.
I think that one's the Ringer. I think that's French.
Why do you think that's French, James?
Because it tastes slightly complex and slightly intellectualised, and it tastes slightly old, actually.
You've got a Chateauneuf de Pape in here, have you?
I do have a Chateauneuf de Pape in here.
I was going to say that, but is it that one?
It is that one. Very good, James.
Yeah, the way I would say it is that the Zinfandels taste fruity, and the Chateauneuf de Pape tastes a bit vegetal. I like Zinfandel. I think I'm a Zinfandel kind of bloke. How much does a bottle of this cost in the UK? Roughly.
Probably 25 pounds, maybe.
Is
20
it?
or 25 pounds.
Oh, balls. I was hoping you'd say it was £6.50, therefore our quest would have been over, but in fact...
James, yeah, they don't have to panic too much on this because we have other wines that are really lovely. You know, 6.5, 7 pounds. Yeah.
Right, now you see, that is interesting because we are very close here to the wine I was looking for when we set off. The American accessible people's wine available in Britain at a reasonable price, and that says I am an American wine, not a sham of a French or an Italian wine. So I can't think of anything more pertinent at this very moment in time in this wine series than trying a glass of Zinfandel that is available in Britain at under £10.
Under £7.
Under £7.
Nor can I.
While we send out to Joel's winery for a bottle of his under £7 special, there's time to have a bit of fun. Normally on this show, Mad Dog Oz witters about wine and I do the driving. But this time, things are a bit different. The challenge is, I have to tell you everything I know about New World wine and Californian wine in particular, in the time it takes Mad Dog to do one circuit of this track, which is roughly 3/4 of a mile, and arrive back at the finish. It's as simple as that. Is everybody happy? Happy? Go! Wine got off to a fairly bad start in the New World because America was founded by some men from Plymouth who didn't actually drink. Well, there was Prohibition, during which people drank more wine and got more hammered than at any other time in American history. Though it is a fruit-based drink, trying to understand it is a strangely fruitless pursuit. The terrain and climate of California are ideal for some grapes. Astronomical volumes of wine at a very reasonable cost. The most interesting of the American grapes is Zinfandel, far too hot really for growing grapes. Californian wine. Grow Rhone varieties for at least 100 years old. Zinfandel. As I ransacked my mind for wine facts, I realised that the wine god has done what he set out to. I am now a fully fledged Zinfandel convert. I love the character of Kent the Vet's 120-year-old church wine, and I'm tickled by the typically American loophole that allowed the vineyards to survive Prohibition. I even forgive Oz for his obsession with fog, and for my 3 minutes at the coalface of wine production. Yes, Zinfandel is definitely my favourite all-round wine so far, but I still refuse to pay 25 quid a bottle. Today, if you want to have a taste of what America means as a historic wine-growing nation, you should drink Zinfandel.
125.
Thank you for listening.
I was hoping that this would show that I had testosterone pumping through my veins and you'd become proud of me and respect me.
I'm very proud of you.
Do you respect me?
I do. Okay, so your next wine challenge is you can have a glass of wine if you can get out of the go-kart.
Easy.
The glass in question will be Joel's £7 Zin. A bottle has just turned up. It's time to find out if this is the wine I've been searching for. What we have here is a real American meal, cheeseburger with blue cheese and bacon, hot dog, and for some reason a sort of salad thing. I don't know where that came from. And with this, we're going to try the all-American wine, which is a Zinfandel, available in the UK in supermarkets for just under £7. Right, I'm going to try a fry.
I'm going to try a bit of hot dog.
That taste of freedom.
Oh. It really is a hot dog. It's just twice as big as usual hot dogs.
Shut up,
all right.
I've got a feeling this is going to go right. I'm pretty happy, actually. By God, Clarke, I think we've done it.
America's wine goes with America's food.
And it's all reasonably priced.
I'm delighted I've lured James away from mass market plonk in favour of a traditional grape variety with a great history. And it's a double whammy, because Zinfandel also fits the bill as the decent, affordable wine of the people that James has been searching for.
Movie shot by Oz in the 1920s shows American officials were worried about the effect alcohol was having on the people. There were far too many high-speed dancing and cocktail shaking accidents. Gangsters stepped in and began bootlegging, running speakeasies and generally shooting up the joint. This was just for parking in somebody else's space. While in response, the FBI ensured that the streets ran with confiscated booze.
But there was one glorious legal loophole in this ban on booze. Making wine for use at home and in religious ceremonies, God bless those Catholics, was allowed. Vineyards actually increased during Prohibition, and so did the demand for wine.
What happened in Prohibition was that people got into the idea of being home winemakers. So everybody got these big, thick, rock-solid kind of grapes without any subtlety to them, but with lots of colour and normally quite a lot of ability to make alcoholic strength. They fermented them into pretty rough and ready stuff. They often made it quite sweet as well. And so the wine drinkers, frankly,
got used to these big, burly, powerful flavours.
Wine, which is made from grapes, is either red or yellow. And what else do you need to know?
Well, there's history and geography, chemistry.
We're in California, and I'm on a mission to find the affordable American wine.
Yes, and I see it more as a voyage of discovery, and I'm keen to show James there is a real history here. So we'll visit the oldest vines,
That is the biggest bunch of grapes I've ever seen.
drink the wines they produce,
It's a taste of the still fairly Wild West.
and meet the heroes who saved them from beverage oblivion.
Along the way, we'll cover all the bases: wine, women, and song.
Come on, baby, let the good times roll.
Our next destination is well known for I Left My Heart.
Oh, give it up, man. And the policing efforts of Carl Malden and Michael Douglas. We are, of course, heading to the streets of San Francisco. This week's episode, Zinfandel.
Thankfully, that prohibition fondness for heavy, sweet wine has gone, although light, sugary wines are still far too common. But dry wines are back in fashion, and the great prohibition survivor, Zinfandel, is on a roll, with mini Californian winemakers billing themselves as Mr. Zin, or the King of Zin, or the Zin Man. Now, to introduce you to America's favourite grape, we're going to meet someone who still works with those vineyards that survived prohibition. Kent Rosenblum is a former vet who got sick of putting dogs down by day and making wine in his basement by night, and he turned pro, concentrating on Zinfandel.
A lot of you guys call you the king of Zin, but I call you the savior of Zin. Why did you suddenly start thinking that you could save it?
We were a little bit forced into it. If we wanted to make wine, we could get these old grapes at $400 a ton, and Cabernet was $1,000, and we found we liked it better than Cabernet after doing it for a while, and realized there's a real gem out here.
Kent and his friends got going in the 1970s when Cabernet and Chardonnay were all the rage, and unfashionable Zin was threatened with extinction. But he doesn't grow grapes. Kent finds old, forgotten vineyards and guarantees the farmer he'll buy their harvest, saving these elderly vineyards from oblivion and providing him and his pals with Zin grapes from vines that go back to the 1890s.
These old vineyards had really just the flavors and the character and the wonderful nuances all their own, and lo and behold, they sold faster than anything else we made. They sold faster in Cabernet, they sold faster in white. So what do? We made some more.
Kent has a deal with a superb old vineyard in Sonoma County that was owned by the St. Peter's Community Church. So he's going to treat us to a taste of church wine from 120-year-old vines, by far the oldest vines we've come across on our trip so far.
A bell sounds for the end of Double History, and it's time for a drink.
That it doesn't look like a typical wine.
This actually goes back to my days of the veterinary practice.
So before this, it went up a horse's bottom then.
You started as a home winemaker.
Right.
So just like the Prohibition guys would have been home winemakers. So another...
On this leg of our journey, my goal is to seduce James away from the high-volume, mass-produced wines he fell for at our last stop.
3 million bottles a day, that's winemaking.
And I think Zinfandel is just the thing to do it, as it's both excellent and affordable.
I've never heard of it.
Well, just listen then, and you might learn something. Zinfandel
Sounds like something you take for diarrhea.
Stop it, James. Zinfandel is an American classic, and with its intense fruitiness, its luscious texture, its hot spices, and its high alcohol content, Zinfandel is just right for the American palate.
What is the American way? Bigger is better.
Extra
Louder
cheese.
is better. Brighter is better. Stronger is better. Extra cheese is better. Supersize me is better.
Something tells me this is going to be a long day.
Big and bouncy Zinfandel was one of the many grape varieties brought over by immigrants from Europe who wanted to retain a flavour of their homeland. But when alcohol was outlawed during Prohibition, wine and winemakers went into crisis.
As this home